At the outset, I'm extremely thankful to SHIV NADAR University for having given me a wonderful opportunity to meet its freshers. It's always a heartening feeling whenever you come upon young children who move out of their schools and get into the portals of a university. And I always tell, when you are with your schools, you are just a boy or a girl, because schools are meant for boys and girls. Colleges and universities are meant not for boys and girls, but for men and women. So congratulations, I'm happy for you, and I'm a bit jealous also because you're so young, so vibrant, so fresh, and so resourceful, so of all positive attributes I can ever think. It's really wonderful to meet you all, though online, and I have specifically taken this topic for you, asking you to design your dreams. So before we get into how to design our dreams, now my talk is going to touch upon only the abstract attributes of human psyche. We do not know, they are not tangible. If they are not tangible, you can tell about their quality, but you cannot quantify them at all. You cannot prove that to anybody. Rather, you may have to prove it repeatedly to yourself to know that you still cherish a dream. So to start with, no, dream does not happen. I am not talking about a dream that turns to be a nightmare sometimes and you dread your sleep hours. I am not talking about that at all. I am talking about a dream which you produce it and you are the produce also. You are the producer and you are the end product also. So having that dream in your mind, I really have my fingers crossed, and I assume that you would have come to the auditorium or you will be listening to me from wherever you are with some kind of a scribbling pad. If that is right, I just would like you to write down, spell DREAM, write it down all in capital letters, one letter after the other. Because by the end of this session, I may ask you, how exactly have you defined every letter? What attribute have you given to each letter? What are the qualities have you given to each letter? I am not talking about only one quality, I am talking about qualities. That is, if D stands for something, what are the qualities that go? What does R stand for? Okay, let me tell you the reason towards the end. Now, before getting into dream does not happen, as I told you, all of a sudden. And I would rather tell you, don't just be a dreamer, become your dream. That's exactly what I try to drive home now. How does a dream begin? So you have to define your dream first before you design your dream. But before you define your dream, you have to know the difference between a dream and a desire. Most of us mistake a desire for a dream. And we are absolutely satisfied when you say that I am desirous of this and mistake it for dream. We use it for synonyms. A desire is definitely different from a dream. And when do you desire something? Now let us go to the origin of all these. Just not the words, but what really motivates you to use a particular word to define a particular emotion. So when do you desire something? When are you desirous of something? When you look into that, you understand that you appreciate something. You appreciate something and you do not stop with that appreciation. You continue to appreciate something, and sometimes at some point of time, you feel whatever the object of my appreciation or the concept of my appreciation or the person of my appreciation, whatever it is, why not I become that? Why not I get it? Why not I own it? Why not I possess it? Or why not I become, why not I have those qualities which I admire in another person? Why not I own those qualities? So what happens? It all starts with an appreciation towards something, and the appreciation gets strengthened when it continues to hold on you, not you hold on that, it holds on you, it grows on you, it engulfs you rather. And what happens after that? This appreciation becomes a desire. Even then, it is very innocent. Even then, it's absolutely harmless, right? But at one point of time, this desire overwhelms you, it eats you, it haunts you. Day in and day out, you find that you are not able to get away from this desire. This desire grows in strength and in frequency, and it develops into a passion, right? I do not know how many of you are passionate about something. How many of you are passionate about your education? How many of you are passionate about some ideal in your life? Because we always use these terms as synonyms. There is just not a layer of difference. There are layers of difference. The intensity is absolutely different when you talk about a desire, an appreciation growing into a desire growing into a passion, and a passion growing into a kind of intoxication without which you cannot just breathe. Fine? At that point, you have to do something. Even now, you are not very sure because it's not tangible. The desire is not tangible. It holds you, it engulfs you, it becomes a passion, then it becomes an intoxication, and it becomes your middle name. You identify yourself only with this desire. Even now, it is still in a stage where it can get aborted. Now what happens now? This dream of yours, which became a passion and which indeed became an intoxication, it has to solidify into something. You have to consolidate. You have to be in a position to identify its attributes. At this juncture, you start defining your desire, right? You have to define it. So definition is just not a group of words arranged in a particular way to make sentence, and sentence is arranged in a particular way to give you sense. It's not that easy. A definition is something very difficult because definition is very concrete. It's not abstract. It's not elastic in its nature. It is something that has to be verified. It has to be put to test at any time by anybody at any place, and it has to give you the same answer. So if you have to define your dream, a dream which is not tangible, which is understood only by you, which is felt only by you, when you have to define it, you have to consolidate it and then put it into words. You have to enslave it. The dream has to be defined. That's the most difficult task. When you try to define your dream, you know what you exactly do? You are just getting initiated into the process of dreaming. From desire, you very gradually move into the portals of a dreamer. If that is the case, what exactly happens when you start defining something? You concretize, as I told you. You have an action plan. You have a roadmap. You have a blueprint. So, it all started as an appreciation, got intensified and was repeated. Immediately it became a desire, and the desire, when it could gain strength, became a passion and an intoxication. And at one point of time you thought, let me put it on words, let me make a definition for it. And when you start defining it, you have an action plan, you have a roadmap, and of course you have a blueprint of your dream. The desire, very slowly it undergoes a kind of a metamorphosis, after which it becomes a dream. If that is the case, again, it's not over. You have got a roadmap. A roadmap doesn't mean that you have started your travel. An action plan doesn't mean that you have started acting, right? Or a blueprint doesn't mean that you already started with the construction work. It is after all a kind of an arrow mark to give you a sense of direction, and it stops at that. Now coming back to our problem. We have got millions and millions and millions of students, and at one point of time a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old enters into the campus of a college or of course a university, and most of the children carry on their shoulder their dream. Some are very passionate about it. Some really go giddy-headed when they start talking about their dream. They have got a definition for their dream. They have an action plan. You ask them to talk about their dream. They go at length talking about their dream, but they stop at that. That's exactly why I told you. Definition of a dream or an action plan or a blueprint or a roadmap does not make a dream. Next happens to be, you have to become a doer of the dream. There is a very brilliant book about what exactly happens when you start dreaming. It's not just about dreaming, it's Book of Mirdad, a book filled with philosophy of life. At one point of time, this philosopher is asked a question, how to lead a painless life, how to lead a life which will give me strength to face the trials and tribulations. And it starts with a 5-point program. It gives you 5 essential rules to lead a life, a useful life, a productive life, a proactive life rather. And what should you do? The first point happens to be, right? Whenever you think of something, remember that your thought would appear in letters upon the sky as if they are written in fire, and everyone in the world can have a look at it. Everyone can read what is going on in your mind. So every time you have a thought, every time you incubate over a thought, every time you have an idea in your mind, whether ill or it may be an evil one or a good one, whatever its nature may be, remember that whenever you have a thought in your mind, it would immediately appear upon the sky as words written in fire so that everybody can get a glimpse of it. How guarded we will be. So, if you have to lead a life which is proactive, which is useful, then think always before you think. Stand as a sentinel for your thoughts. If you stand as a sentinel for your thoughts, like as I was talking to you about appreciating something, then the appreciation growing into a dream, stand as a sentinel for that so that in the very thought process you know what has to be allowed inside and what has to be filtered, right? Once your thought is taken care of, the second one, whenever you speak, remember the moment you start articulating your thoughts into words, remember the whole world will turn into one ear to listen to whatever you have got to say. Now what happens? When you start speaking about your thought, please be very, very guarded, please be very, very choosy so that you use only the appropriate, acceptable, positive words which would define what is going on in your mind completely, thoroughly, without any ambiguity. So always remember, when you start speaking out anything, the whole world will become one ear to listen to whatever you have got to say. That is the second point. That's exactly how Mirdad gives you a kind of a recipe for a beautiful life. And the third one, he says, if it is so, you have taken care of your thoughts, you stand as a sentinel for your thoughts, right? A custodian of your thoughts. The second one, you know what words to be used and what words should not be used, right? So you filter heavily before you speak out. And the third one is, whatever you do, you will get it back. If you are lucky, it will come back as you gave. If you are not that lucky, don't worry, it will come back manifold. With interest, you will get back. So whatever is your action, you will get it back. So please be very, very mindful of what you are going to do. So you know how your thoughts will be. You know how you are going to put them into words, and then when you put them into words, you also have an action plan, because you know this action will always come back with heavy dividends. And the fourth point is, he smilingly asks you a question. How long will you be a dreamer? Why don't you become a dream? Maybe that's exactly that particular idea gave me this topic, design your dream. So how long will you be a dreamer? How long will you think of your dream? How long will you word your dream? How long will you have an action plan of your dream? As long as it is just a vision, only you can visualize it. Or you may talk about it to everyone. Your vision will have to become a mission. An action plan does not make it a mission. A blueprint does not make it a mission. You have to plunge into it. It's not, you are not just a dreamer, you become a dream, you become a mobile dream. Whomsoever happens to meet you will know that you carry your dream on you. You have become your dream. Fine. So what happens? Then towards the end, the fifth point is, if you want to be proactive, productive, relevant in this planet, right? The fifth one is, if God Almighty would like to come and live here, He should insist that you are His co-liver. That is, you also occupy this planet. You become so precious, you become so rare, so unique, that you are a project in progress, that the Creator should insist that His created should live along with Him if He desires to occupy this planet. What a beautiful kind of philosophy. Now coming back to a dream, as I told you, you thought about your dream and the thinking has now you consolidated and then you put it into an action plan. So an appreciation becomes a desire grows on you as you grow it. Fine, then it becomes a dream, and the dream can be realized only when you have an action plan. And I told you, millions of children stop at this particular point. They get extremely satisfied that they have got an action plan. This is what happened when you were in your higher secondary, right? The moment an examination gets announced, the moment a test gets announced, what do? We sit and go in for an elaborate action plan. We have a blueprint, we write down a timetable and have it stuck at a particular point where everybody who happens to visit us will have a glimpse of it. They will appreciate how very meticulous you are, how very regular you are, how very rigorous you are. But as long as the action plan is not put into action, it remains theoretical. We do not know whether it will work out or not. We have not come upon the problems. We cannot visualize the problems. We can say that there will be a problem here, there will be a problem here. You can only suggest, you can expect a problem to come, but you do not know how immense it is, how intense it is unless you really come upon the problem, right? And you have to become a problem solver. If that is the case, you have to get into the problem, not get away from it. You can't stand at another place and assess a problem. You can't assess a problem. Even here, I have a feeling that online, you can tell this is how it will be. But once you come to the problem, you have to be there to have your personal experience of the problem, or else you can never learn how to solve it. As I told you. Now, I ask you another question. The first one is an assignment I gave you. Write down dreamer, dream and define your dream, so that it is not just a dream with an indefinite article. It becomes a dream with a definite article. It's not a dream, it becomes the dream. It's your dream. You personalize your dream. Everything can be personalized. Like the dress which you have, it is custom made. You ask for a particular measurement, so you get it. So you have to have your dream which is yours and yours only, and you alone will understand, you alone can use it, you alone can appreciate it, and you alone can realize it. So from being a person who dreams, you become a person who is a doer of a dream. You put it into action. Now I ask you for the second question. How many of you would like to be one among the lot, right? Or one above the lot? That is, if you are an 18-year-old, how many of you are very happy to be just an 18-year-old who has got the wonderful chance of getting into SHIV NADAR University, choosing a particular group? You may have your parents along with you, or you may be there in the auditorium along with your mentors, your teachers, and of course your classmates, right? How many of you are just happy with this? What do you mean by this? That's why when I greet somebody, I'll never say happy morning, I'll say good morning. Though I have come upon lots of people who say happy morning. I personally know out of my own experience, happiness need not be goodness, because most of us mistake happiness for comfort or comfort for happiness. We use many words for synonyms. Goodness is something different. Goodness need not leave you happy. Goodness can disturb you. Goodness can make you feel low and blue. Goodness may encourage you to work better. Happiness is an entirely different state of mind. That's why we always greet each other as with a good morning. Let the morning be good. Bring about the best in you. Let it not be just a comfortable, happy morning. Let us go for goodness, not just for happiness, because when you search for goodness, happiness happens to be a byproduct of it. Treat happiness only as a byproduct, but your focal point will have to be on goodness. Now, how many of you would like to be one among the others? And how many of you desire so that it becomes a dream, one above the others? In the sense, an 18-year-old, you are all there Would you like to be one among all the 18-year-old children they assemble there, or would you like to be one who is looked upon by the rest of the 18-year-old children? If that is the case, you have to implement your action plan. Now, what does this action plan do? For example, if you have taken a 3-year program with SHIV NADAR University or a 5-year program, an integrated program, I do not know what exactly is your branch, right? Whatever may be your choice, now that you have taken it, imagine yourself to be a rocket, a satellite, which will be launched, right? After a particular period of time. It may be 3 years, it may be 5 years, it may be 4 years, I do not know. When are you going to get ready? Do you wait for an auspicious time to get ready, or have you already realized that the process has begun? It's not your time starts now, your time has already started, maybe on 9th. The moment you had your induction program, fine, the inaugural of the induction program, or the moment you joined this course, it has already started, and you have to have your set of skills and everything ready. Coming back again, imagine yourself now. I understand that most of you wouldn't just be satisfied with being one among the others. Some of you at least would desire to be one above the others. A 19-year-old who will be looked upon by the rest of the 19-year-olds. An 18-year-old who will be looked upon as somebody tall, different, with of course an ideal, with of course a mission, who is just not a dreamer, a dream himself or herself, looked upon by others. If that is the case, come back again. We have just now started. You are a project that has now, you have been initiated into this process of progress. If that is the case, consider yourself to be raw material, because your desire is just a raw material. Your desire with an action plan is the first phase of a raw material to undergo continuously, consciously into a progress. You have to go through a process so that the end product will be useful. At present, you are unused. You are not completely usable. Sometimes, if this is a static state, if this is a stagnant state, as I told you, many children stop at this stage, and they are very happy that they could dream of something and stop at that. It's not a comma for them, it's a full stop for them. If that is the case, what really happens? That is, you stay as a raw material, that's all. A raw material with all its impurities. You may be the most precious metal upon the planet, but of course you have been taken from the ore and you have all the impurities, and along with the impurities, the you in you is also there. Somebody could detect it, somebody could decipher what it is, and somebody could take you, and now that they have put you in the university, the process of purification has started. It should have started in school, now it continues. Just imagine that you still continue to be raw material with your own impurities, which you have to necessarily get rid of, or a block of wood which has to be chiseled into something, a beautiful statue, or a very precious metal which has to now end product, it has to allow itself to become an ornament, something very good. You were asking about the Kohinoor diamond. Kohinoor diamond, again, along with millions and millions of its counterparts, it would have been buried deep inside the earth, and somebody took the pains to take it out. Even when they took it out, it was not Kohinoor diamond. It had all the attributes of making it into the most precious jewel, but it was just, after all, with all its impurities. And what did it do? It allowed itself to be cleansed, it allowed itself to be purified, it allowed inside itself to go through this very difficult process of removing all those which will not allow it to become the most precious jewel, right, which you desire to be brought back to India. If that is the case, you are like that. And what should you do? You have to give yourself to someone. Maybe education is the only tool which allows you to get your impurities carefully, continuously, but surely removed from what you are. The raw material becomes the finished product, And in the course of this, you will have lots and lots of byproducts. That's why I said, if goodness is what you desire, being useful is what you desire, being relevant to the society is what you desire, if you desire to realize your dream, if you have the capacity to look behind the beyond, if that is the case, then you will become a willing raw material. Now, what is the difference between a willing raw material? Is it something which has a mind of its own? I'm not talking about the Kohinoor diamond, which has no other option but to be Kohinoor diamond. I'm not talking about a precious jewel. I'm not talking about a piece of rock. I'm not talking about a piece of wood. I'm talking about somebody who is with an intuition which started as an instinct. Like an animal, we all had instinct. But when we started applying our knowledge, our wisdom, our reason, our ethics, it became intuition, a voice from within. It's just not a feeling from within, that is just your instinct. Instinct which compels you to understand that you are at the wrong place at the wrong time, it is danger, there is danger and you have to run away. That is your instinct. But your intuition, even then, it's a voice from within. It tells you the difference between what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil, where you have a rich, you have a choice to make. If that is the case, you are not the most precious jewel, you are not a piece of wood, you are not just a block of stone, you are a human being and you have been already activated in school. If this is the case, now how are you going to be a willing raw material? I still consider you raw material. Even when you step out of your campus, most often I used to ask my students, are you a fresh graduate or a raw graduate? A raw graduate is yet to understand that he is a graduate and yet to understand his responsibilities when he takes out his degree along with him, how relevant he is to the outside world. If he has not yet realized his responsibilities, if he is just concentrating only on his rights and not duties, he is still a raw graduate. A fresh graduate is one who has understood what he has to do and how he has to do and where and when he has to perform his duties. Now coming back, a willing raw material. You know what is a willing raw material? Just imagine, this is a beautiful little story which will be very useful to you whenever you feel low and blue while you undergo this process of, if I can call it, purification or the process of progress of becoming the end product. Or you have just started defining your dream. Once you get your dream, you start, when you are in the final phase, you start designing your dream. Okay. It's about two huge pieces of marble. Both were procured from the same place and both were kept in the workshop of a great sculptor. Both were treated for a long time. They have to be seasoned, if I can use a word. They were treated properly so that they can be sculpted into something very beautiful. Right. Now this is exactly what happened. But after a year, where you happen to see these two, there's a huge museum, and in the museum you have a marble bust of a great leader. It looks so very real that you feel as if the leader who is so close to your heart is smiling at you. It doesn't look like a statue. It doesn't look like a marble bust at all. It looks as if it's breathing there, right? So it's so very beautiful that it is mounted on a column, a pedestal. It has been put on a pedestal and it's so very realistic, and the whole room, the flooring is of marble and everything looks so beautiful, and there is a spotlight right on its head and it showers such a beautiful, it looks, it's a cascading of light. If light could be in liquid form, it just flows over the statue. It looks so very beautiful. People feel as if they cannot just take away their eyes from it. They would like to keep on looking at it. Now it has been installed on a particular day, and there has been there was a festival for all those things, and people start visiting every day. Each day becomes a celebration. Even after 6 months, people love to see that marble bust. They make it a point to visit the museum every day because it's so very realistic. It's a masterpiece day, right? And every day, very carefully, the person who takes care of the museum, he will lock it. The room will be doubly locked so that the marble bust is kept safe. Nothing else is in that room. That room is specifically given for the marble bust. That particular night, there is a voice audible, and the voice is from another marble, the twin marble who came along with the marble slab which this marble statue, which was once upon a time just a piece of rock, right? Along with it came another piece. The other piece now has been utilized to floor the place, right? Now the floor asks the question. It just asks the marble bust, why should you enjoy all the fame? Why should you receive all the applause? People get excited at the mere sight of you. They go at length to praise you, praise the sculptor. Don't you feel it is unfair? We both came from the same place, didn't we? We both were kept at the same workshop, weren't we? And we both were seasoned in the same way. What is so great about you that you occupy a pedestal and people walk on me? This is unfair. The marble bust keeps silent for some time and then starts answering. Of course, we both came from the same place. Of course, we both were at the same place also. And we were seasoned in the same way. We were treated in the same way, right? Everything is the same. Nothing. There was no partiality at all. But do you remember, the sculptor chose you first. He did not look at me at all. He ran his fingers on you and he kept on telling himself, this will make a beautiful statue. This is the right kind of stone I would like to work on. It would lend itself to become a great statue. It will accept willingly whatever my chisel and hammer say. He tried not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. Every time he approached, every time he started chiseling you, you wouldn't allow yourself to be chiseled. You were totally unwilling, you were grumbling, you were complaining, you had this or that. You were so stubborn. You thought it was determination, both looked the same. You were so stubborn that you wouldn't allow him to chisel you into a beautiful statue. I was only his second option. He was so reluctant when he came. But what happened? I was very willing. I was ready to surrender. I knew I have to get rid of what is not me to become me. I have to allow myself to come out of all those things which imprison me. I have to prove myself to the world. I have to be, so I cannot do it on my own. I need somebody's help. And that somebody happens to be the sculptor. And he has a chisel, he has a hammer. And what does he want to do? He doesn't want to cause any damage. He would like to bring out the best in me. And if I am not going to be a willing receiver of what he tries to do, what he wants to bring out, I want to bring out the best in me and he wants to bring out the best in me. If we both desire the same, why not the desire develop into a dream? He has an action plan. He knows what to do. He knows how to do. He knows when to do. And he knows how not to do and what not to do and when not to do also. If that is a thing, he has got a clarity in his method. What did I do? I just subjected myself willingly. I was a willing raw material so that I can become an end product with useful byproducts. Instead of grumbling, instead of complaining, instead of refusing to submit myself to something good, I said yes. But what did you do? You continuously said no. And now he had to make use of you. And you are where you are and I am where I am. Now coming back to defining a dream from definition. You go on to designing your dream, because sometimes at present we may be used less and we may mistake ourselves to be useless, right? Sometimes instead of use, we may put ourselves to disuse or abuse or misuse. To know what it is to be used, to know what it is to be useful, you have to go through this process. You have to go for an acid test. It has to be a test with fire so that all the impurities go away from you. Even then, you have to now design your dream. The dream is yours. The dream, the raw material for the dream has come from you, and you are the producer. You are the end product. You are the process. If that is the case, with the help of education, which can be the chisel, with help of the ethics, which can be the hammer, you are going to chisel yourself into something so that the end product will be a gift to the world outside. You have to deliver yourself as a gift to the world outside. But is it okay? Is it okay to just stop with one design? Because when you design, you go in for just not the final design does not come at the first stage itself. The initial level, you have a plan and you have a rough draft. Then you go in for as many number of drafts as the situation warrants. And what do? You keep on improving, and every time you draft the next one, remember, what do you mean by success here? Now, this is exactly where the sense of failure, the sense of fatigue, the sense of frustration, everything come uninvitedly, right? The moment you feel the fatigue, don't worry. Fatigue does not come all alone. It comes with its battalion of its friends. Along with fatigue will come the depression. Unfortunately, depression is the most abused, misused word, because depression is a kind of a mental state which has to be clinically treated. A passing sadness, a passing disappointment is often mistaken for depression. Now what happens? A slight fatigue, a slight tiredness immediately makes you feel that you are a failure. And what do I call a success? Success is the enthusiasm with which you move from one defeat to another defeat. That's what really happens in the action plan. When I say have an action plan, so that your desire becomes a dream. So you have defined your dream. Once you finish defining your dream, putting it into words, having it something tangible which you can explain to people, you become the dream, and you undergo various stages willingly. You become a willing raw material, a reasoning raw material, a passionate raw material who would accept all challenges, so that you chisel away what is not you. If that is right, you will come upon one defeat after the other. I'm sorry to use a word. I would rather use a word. From one experience, you move on to another experience. The experience need not be a happy one. That's why I said, I do not wish you happy morning. I wish you good morning, because an experience will be an incident, will become an experience, because after the incident, if there is a considerable change in your attitude towards life, a permanent change in your attitude towards life, a progressive change in your attitude towards life, then that incident becomes an experience. My meeting you today morning is after all an incident. It will become an experience only when you register or receive, record and replay whenever you want the ideas I put forth, right? If that is the case, would you like to just have a collection of a huge marathon of incidents, or would you like to change them into experience? If you want them to become experience, don't worry, they need not be happy. Most often they are not happy, but they are pretty satisfying. You just ask a person who has been defeated in a race, who missed a race because of a nanosecond, just ask him. He might have got the silver medal, or he might have moved to the bronze medal, but nonetheless, the efforts he had put in, they are very rewarding. The process is rewarding. Once you start feeling satisfied with the process, don't worry about the product. The product has already got its design. People who are unsure of the process have no claims, have no control over the product. Fine? If, again, coming back, if you are a person who willingly allows yourself to move from one experience to another experience, that's what is your action plan. You may have plan B, you may have plan C, but don't worry, you have to go through it. You have to go via it. The only way to overcome a problem is to go through it, not around it or above it or far away from it. You have to go through it, or else you will never know what a problem is. Each problem has got its own characteristic features. Now, when you start moving, maybe your first semester will give you a couple of experiences. You will have an academic experience, you will have a financial experience, you will have an emotional experience, you will have an intellectual experience. All these would just stop being incidents if you do not absorb the best from each of them as a sponge, because you are just not going to have knowledge, you are going to convert the knowledge into wisdom. An incident gives you knowledge, an experience gives you wisdom, you grow wiser by it. So, from one defeat to another defeat, instead of using the word defeat, I would, again, as I told you, I would like to use the word as an experience. a good experience, an unhappy one, a disappointing one, but yet it is a good one because you learned something. Whenever you learn something from an incident, it definitely becomes an experience, and as long as you don't repeat what should not be repeated, don't worry, you have already grown wiser. In this action plan, you very gradually go towards the dream, and once you go to a particular length, don't worry, the dream has got its own gravitational pull. As I told you, it starts growing on you. In a nursery, like your mind is a nursery where you nourish and cherish and nurture the dream. But once it has taken a particular form, it has grown to a particular height, to a particular strength, don't worry, it has a gravitational pull. You become just not the dream, or you become the dream itself. If that is the case, you start designing your dream. You know what are all the things that do not contribute to the construction of your dream. You start eliminating. You've got your skill set, you've got your knowledge, you have got the knowledge of what to do and what not to do. But yet, remember, what you are and who your friends are, and what you are and what books you choose to read, they will decide how you design your dream. It's not one permanent design, it's a rough draft. You improve upon the rough draft. You may have your teacher. Even then, just imagine when you were in your 7th standard or 8th standard in school, you were asked to draw a triangle. The measurements were given, right? The angles were given. And the names were also, whether it's XYZ or ABC or whatever it is, the teacher asked you to have a rough draft somewhere and asked you to work on the rough draft. So all the doubts were cleared when you were working on the rough draft, because once you take the final form, you can, even now you can correct, but the correction will leave certain imprints of the damage that has been done. So what do? We go in for first rough draft, then move on to the second, then move on to the third. You occupy various positions, you occupy various angles to get the complete glimpse of your dream. In totality, you go in for an aerial view also, from God's point of view also, you view your dream. You ask millions of questions, not the questions others ask and you have to answer. You ask your own questions, you have your own solutions, right? You identify the problems and you don't stop with the identification of the problem. You realize the problem, you analyze the problem and you answer the problem, you reach a particular solution, and you now understand that now I can go in for the final draft, right? You have designed your dream. But one thing, time has to tell whether this design may remain permanent. I would like to draw your attention to something seemingly negligible, a safety pin. Have you ever observed its shape? Have you ever taken enough care to look at it? Have you ever put it on a table to see how magnificent its appearance is? I'm using the right word. Magnificent its appearance is, right? I don't understand. I don't know. Nobody really cares for it unless you have a need for it. Unless you need something, you don't care. You don't take into account its presence or absence. So you take it as a third homework from me. Go back. Search for the person who designed a safety pin. How old is a safety pin? How evolved is a safety pin? Like a human appearance, it has reached the optimum height of its evolution. It's not going to evolve anymore. You can make a safety pin of platinum or gold, but yet it has to remain just not a pin, a safety pin, right? The spring at the bottom is very important, like the head which locks it. And if anything goes wrong with the length or the shape, it would never continue being a safety pin. After all, a safety pin. You will understand nothing is after all in this world. There are certain designs which become permanent. There are certain designs which can be improved upon. So your dream tells you whether you have designed it for the time being or designed it for a short term, or you will be compelled to redesign it, undesign it as the situation warrants. But one thing, you will always stay with your dream. Always have your tools sharp. Always have your tools ready. Always will look around to know that you are running a race where another competitor would overtake you with a better design of your own dream if you do not want that to happen, be a conscious dreamer, be a passionate dreamer, but always remain a willing dreamer who is ready to tinker and tailor the dream as and when the situation warrants. Now I think I can go for the interaction with you, which I very, very eagerly look out for. So thank you ever so much. Thanks a lot for the wonderful opportunity to have a conversation, not a talk at you, not to you, but with you. Thank you. Thank you ever so much. Thanks a lot.